Hello students and namaste everyone. Our today's topic for your standard 9th is figures of speech. Already on this topic students we have discussed in our previous two sessions or previous two lectures some of the figures of speech. First we had started with the easiest one, then a bit difficult one, and today again we will discuss some more figures of speech which are still pending to be discussed. Right, so let us begin. Okay, in the first lecture we had discussed 8 figures of speech. Another lecture we had discussed again another 8 figures of speech, and we'll try to complete remaining figures of speech in our today's lecture. So the first figure of speech for today is onomatopoeia. It is onomatopoeia, right? So it will be number 17. Onomatopoeia. Okay, onomatopoeia. Right. So onomatopoeia is a figure of speech, right, wherein the sound of words suggest echo, right, the meaning of the word, right. So usually in this figure of speech there is basically a sound of word. That means there are the words given in the lines which suggest sound. Okay, so I'll write down the meaning of it. Onomatopoeia is here the word used in the poem suggests echo or sound. Okay, so it is basically a figure of speech where the word used in the poem suggests echo or sound. So to understand this, we will take one example. Okay, so that is the car whizzed past us. The car whizzed past us. Okay, the car whizzed past us. So here the word whizzed, right? You all might have heard many times if we are asked that how does the car make a sound, so we usually say vroom vroom, right? So that word which suggests actually sound is known as onomatopoeia. Okay, so here in this sentence the car whizzed past us. That means the car which was passing by made a sound of zzz. Whizzed. Okay, so word whizzed is used for sound or echo, and therefore the figure of speech used over here is onomatopoeia. Okay. Next one is we hear the tolling bell. Okay. So we hear the tolling bell. Okay. So tolling is again a word. Tung, right? Usually when the bell is rung, it makes a sound that is tolling. Tung. So we hear the tolling bell. So again the word tolling represents or suggests an echo or a sound, and therefore the figure of speech used is onomatopoeia. Okay, so I hope so this figure of speech is clear to you. Now next similar kind of figure of speech, which is number 18, that is internal rhyme. Right, so internal rhyme. What does internal rhyme means? So when in a poem, right, words in the same line, words in the same line they rhyme with each other. Words here, the words in the same line rhyme with each other. Okay, words in the same line, they rhyme with each other. The figure of speech used is internal rhyme. Okay, so internal rhyme means what? Here the words in the same line rhyme with each other. Rhyme, again I'll give you the example. You all might have heard about the rhyming words in your lower classes. So again, this is the same figure of speech wherein in a poem, if a line is there wherein the words are such which are rhyming with each other, so that figure of speech is internal rhyme. So to understand that, we will take one example. For example, it is the cattle fought a battle. Okay, so here if we check it out, the rhyming words are cattle and battle, right? So in the same line, two different rhyming words are used with each other, right? So two different rhyming words are given. So the figure of speech here will be internal rhyme. Okay. Further, I will write down one more example. He lays his staircase. He lays his staircase. Okay. He lays his staircase as he goes. Okay, under his 8 thoughtful toes. Under his 8 thoughtful toes. So here again, if we check, what are the rhyming words? Goes and toes, right? So when such rhyming words are given in the lines, okay, then it can be said as internal rhyme. So these were the two figures of speech which were related with the sound. So I have taken both of them together. Now we'll move ahead and see some another figures of speech. Okay, so let us proceed further and try to understand some more figures of speech, right? So the next figure of speech which we will study right now is irony. Okay, so the next figure of speech for today is number 19, which is irony. Okay, so basically, what is the irony? Right, so irony is exactly the opposite of that which is literally conveyed in the rhyme. Right, exactly. Here, the real meaning. Here, the real meaning is exactly is exactly opposite, right? Here the real meaning is exactly opposite of that, exactly opposite of that, which is here the real meaning is exactly opposite of that which is literally conveyed, in the line. Okay, so we need to understand what is the meaning of irony. Irony here, right? What is the figure of speech? Irony. So in irony, what happens here? The real meaning, right? So usually we have seen in the poem, I had explained you this thing while I was given you the meaning of figures of speech, that usually what happens in the poem, the poet uses many poetic devices, and what happens is that when we read out the poem, the meaning what it conveys is different than the actual meaning of the poem, right? So many times if you read out a line in the poem, the meaning is something different, but when you actually try to understand it, or the real meaning what the poet wants to convey through those lines is different, right? So therefore the real meaning is exactly opposite to that which is literally conveyed in the line. It means when you read out the lines of the poem, you will get some meaning, but the meaning which the poet wants to convey is exactly opposite to that or different to that. So when such kind of thing happens, the figure of speech is irony. So we'll take examples to understand that. Okay. So examples for irony is his strength behind the bars. His strength behind the bars. Okay, so this is basically a poem, Tiger in the Cage, right, which you will study in your 10th standard. So this line belongs to that poem. His strength, his here means the tiger, his strength behind the bars. That means here if we read out the line, we understand or we come to know or we get idea that the tiger's strength is being talked about. Right, but actually the poet here wants to convey the message, right, that his strength behind the bars. That means he's trying to explain or give the meaning which is exactly opposite, that the tiger is helpless, his strength behind the bar. So usually when we read this line, we feel that the tiger which is behind the bars you all know, right, usually the jail or the cage is known as bar. Okay, so the tiger is put inside the cage, and therefore the poet is saying his strength behind the bar. So while reading the line, we understand that the strength of the tiger is being talked about, but the actual meaning what the poet wants to try to explain it to us, that he is trying to say that the strength of the tiger behind the bar, that means the tiger which is inside the cage, all his strength is useless, so the tiger becomes helpless behind the bars or inside the cage and without strength. That means whatever strength the tiger is having is all waste, right? It is of no use because he cannot use the strength inside the cage, right? With its strength it cannot break the bars or it cannot come out. So that is what the actual meaning of the poet is. Okay. So that is the example of irony. Again I will explain you the same meaning. The strength behind the bars. That means when we read out this line, okay, as I said, this poem is related to the tiger which is put inside the cage. So we understand that the poet is talking about the strength of the tiger. But the meaning is here the meaning over here is exactly the opposite. The poet actually wants to convey that the tiger who is very powerful, who is having a lot of strength, but when it is put inside the bar or the cage, his all the strength becomes useless and the tiger feels helpless. So that is what the poet is trying to say. So the line, that is the literal meaning of the line, and the meaning what the poet wants to convey is exactly the opposite. So this is irony. Okay. Now we'll shift to another figure of speech. Right? We'll try to understand another figure of speech. So let us check it out. That is paradox. Okay. So the figure of speech is paradox. Okay. So here what happens? Paradox. Okay, so this is a figure of speech. Okay, so here, right, whenever the statements are given in the line, right, so this is a figure of speech where the statement appears. Here the statement appears here the statement appears absurd. Absurd. Here the statement appears absurd, or absurd means we can say absurd means either crazy or stupid. Right? So absurd means crazy or stupid. So here the statement appears to be absurd, that is crazy or stupid, right? But contains the truth. But contains the truth. Right? So usually the paradox are a kind of statement which appears absurd, that appears to be absurd. Absurd means crazy or stupid, but it contains the truth. Right? So usually paradox are the statements which are used in our day-to-day life. Right? We have come across many paradox statements in our day-to-day life. Right? But we don't know what exactly the meaning of it is. So I hope so the meaning is clear to you. But to make it more clear, let us see or let us have an example to understand it in a better way. Right? So the example for that is, example is save money by spending it. Right? Then another example for that is if I know one thing, it's that I know nothing. It's that I know nothing. Right? So this is another example for it. Next is, this is the beginning of the end. This is the beginning of the end. Okay? So usually when we read such kind of sentences, we feel like it is a kind of absurd statement, or it's a kind of funny or stupid sentence. What does it mean? Right? We don't understand it. But when we go into the depth, when we try to understand it in literally terms, so the meaning of that is very true. For example, usually the people say that I know only one thing, right? That I don't know anything. So when we hear such kind of statement, we feel like it is a kind of stupid statement. But when we try to understand it, it is genuinely the true sentence which the other person wants to convey. Right? Save money by spending it. Right? That means at many places or many times, if you are spending money behind something useful, right, or behind something which is necessary, that means it is in some form or the other form we are trying to save the money, right? Then the example which I gave you, then the last one is this is the beginning of the end. Now usually we feel that what is this? What does it mean actually? But the sentence, it contains a truth. This is the beginning of the end. That means usually when a war takes place, right, it is just the beginning, but that beginning is just for something to end. That means it is a kind of beginning, war, right? And when war will take place, everything will come to an end, right? So such kind of meaning it contains in it. And when such kind of sentences are there which are absurd or crazy, it is paradox. Even I have one or two more examples. I'll just read it out to explain it to you. Cowards die many times before their deaths. Cowards means the people who are very, in Hindi we use the word darpo, coward. Right? So cowards, that means those people who are always afraid of something or the other. Right? So cowards die many times before their death. Now again we get surprised that what does it mean? Right? So those are the people who don't have courage to face anything in their life. So they are, means many a times they have to do many such things which is not acceptable by them. Right? So it is, means usually if we are told to do something which is very inferior kind of thing, and if we don't like to do that thing, we feel like no, I don't want to do that thing, but forcefully if the thing is to be done because we are coward. So that is how the example, it means that coward dies many times before its death. That means the final death or the original death, before that he has to do many things which is not appropriate for him. Then the next example is it's hard work doing nothing. It's hard work doing nothing, right? So usually the people, they keep on doing something or the other, but there are even people who don't do anything, right? So in our life, again, not to do anything needs a lot of hard work. That means it is very difficult. If a person like me who keeps working for hours, and if I am told not to do any kind of work, to sit idly, then it becomes very difficult for me. So that statement suits many other people like me. That is, it's hard work doing nothing. The next example is, the more we know, the less we understand. The more we know, the less we understand, right? So again, this all sentences have much or many in-depth meaning, so you can try to understand or find out the meaning of it, right? I'm just giving you the examples. I can resist anything but temptation. I can resist anything, and temptation is something which means a strong desire, right? So if I'm having a temptation for chocolate right now, that means I need to have the chocolate right now, right? So that is temptation. So here it is written, I can resist anything. That means I can do away with anything but temptation. So again, it is a kind of conflicting or confusing statements, but the meanings are actually true in it. Okay, so those kind of sentences are known as paradox. Okay, so the next figure of speech, I hope so paradox is clear to you all, right? So the next figure of speech which we will see right now is yes, it is pun. Okay, so I love the word speech. So, number 21, pun. Right? So, it is a figure of speech wherein a word is used in more than one sense. Here, a word is used in more than one sense. Okay? A word means one word is used in more than one sense. A word is used in more than one sense. So let us see some examples to understand pun. Okay? Even pun is a figure of speech which is always in the form of a joke, right? It is in the form of a joke. It is in a form of joke, or usually we use a word that is humor, right? It is used for humor. Okay. So it is a figure of speech wherein a word is used in more than one sense, and usually what happens, it is a kind of witty statements, right? Witty means which requires more intelligence, and even pun is a figure of speech to understand which a person requires a large vocabulary. A large vocabulary means what? Right? That means, as I said, that here one word is such which has many different meanings. So again, we should be aware, we should be knowing the meaning of those words actually, right? Then only we can understand what is the meaning of pun. Okay, and it is also known as play of words. Okay, pun is usually known as play of words. Okay, so pun is usually known as play of words. We'll take some of the examples to understand it. Right? So the first example to understand pun is, the tallest building in the town is the library. The tallest building in the town is a library. Okay, is a library. It has thousands of stories. It has thousands of stories. Right? So here this word stories, it is a word having more than one sense. So if we talk about the tallest building in the town is a library, it has thousands of stories. So usually in the libraries we find books. So usually the books are such which has a lot of stories in it, right? So usually library, as I said, so this is one of the meaning of it, which is stories. Again, if we talk about the building, Again we say that it is a two-floored or two-storied building, five-storied building, right? So story or stories, right? Again it means the number of floors which it has, right? So therefore the meaning here, that is upon here, as I said, one story, stories. So one meaning of it is related to the books, and the another meaning of stories over here is number of floors, right? So whenever in a sentence a word is such, or a word is used in such a way that it has more than one sense, so the figure of speech used is pun. Okay, I hope so this meaning is clear to you all. We'll take one more example to understand it. I was struggling to figure out how lightning works. I was struggling to find out how lightning works. How lightning works. Further, but then it struck me. Okay. Again, what does this mean? It struck me. Okay. It struck me. So we'll read out the sentence again. I was struggling to find out how lightning works. Lightning means bijli or vijli. But then it struck me. Struck me here means two different meanings. Struck me means I got the idea. Yes, what does it mean or how does it work? Another meaning, it struck me. That means it is with the reference of lightning. When the lightning or the vijli, what we say in Gujarati or bijli in Hindi, it struck me. That means I got affected because of it. So that are the two different meanings of the word. It struck me, right? So again it is a pun. Okay. Fine. So I hope so the meaning is clear. So again we can write down the meanings of it struck me. The first meaning is to get an idea or understanding. Okay, and the another meaning means it struck me. It means with reference to lightning, means to get hit by lightning or thunderstorm. Right? So again, it struck me has two different meanings, right? It struck me, yes, that means to get an idea or understanding. Again, it struck me, that means the lightning fell on me, or to get hit by lightning. So when a word is used in more than one sense, it is pun. Even I have one more or two examples. I'll just read it out. So that will be your examples for pun, and you'll get a better understanding. Santa Claus. We have all heard about Santa Claus. So Santa Claus helpers are known as subordinate clause. Right? Subordinate clauses. That means usually the people at lower level, usually those who are helping us in doing some or the other work, they are known as our subordinates. Right? Who work at same level are known as coordinates. Bottom level means subordinates. So therefore the meaning over here is Santa Claus helpers are known as subordinate clauses. Again, the word subordinate clauses has two different meaning, right? One meaning of subordinate clause, which you already know, which you have studied in your grammar. One is our main clause, right? You all have studied about the phrases and clauses. In clauses, again, there are two types: main clause and the subordinate clause. Or other name for main clause is independent clause, and the subordinate clause, which is known as dependent clause, right? So two different meaning of the word subordinate clauses. One is which are the helpers of syntax clause, and the another one is your grammar part. Okay, types of clauses. Another example for pun: my maths teacher called me average. Full stop. She is so mean. Again, here we are having two different words with different meaning, right? According to the pun. So, my math teacher called me average. Again, we know average means what? Totaling something. That means 5 different scores are given. We are adding that, and again we are dividing it with the 5. So that is average. Again, another meaning of average means not very good in studies, not very poor in studies. So in between means average or an average student. Again, she is so mean, right? The sentence is, my math teacher called me average. She is so mean. Again, you know mean median mode, right? So that is one of the method of finding average. But here it means mean. Usually when the person who is very selfish or who is very harsh on us, we use the word mean. She's so mean, right? So that is the meaning over here. Again, another example, and the last example for pun: you are a man of weight, W-E-I-G-H-T, weight and consequences. So here the word is weight. You are the man of weight. Again, we all know meaning of weight, right? A person is very heavy in weight. And another word or the another meaning, you are a man of weight. That means you are a person who is having too much importance in the society. And again, it means that you are a person who is important in the society. That means whatever you say or whatever you tell the people to do, they will follow that, right? So that is, you are a man of weight and consequences, right? So these are some of the examples of pun. Okay.